Welcome to Small Group Instruction Leads to Big Gains. I'm so glad you're here. We have an amazing presenter, Chelsey Potter. I'm so excited to hear this presentation. I'm gonna tell you, I got a sneak peek of it, and I kind of like it. So I'm happy to have her here with me today. Who am I? You may say, hello, I'm Dr. Desiree Alexander. I am your host for today, and these are all of the different ways that you can get to me. If you're watching us on the YouTube channel, no, you don't get a certificate, but yes, you do get the knowledge. And under the video in the description, you will see the link for the resource for today. So definitely go and grab that resource. The last ending with a bang webinar is engaging students in picture books. This is kind of a part 2. She already came and told us about how to do this, and she's going to go a little bit deeper into how you can take a picture book and actually use this in all of your grade levels and all of your content areas. And I know I was middle and high school, and I always taught with picture books. So we're ending with a bang Saturday, November 2nd. Definitely come and check it out. We always have our self-paced courses that you can get into at any time. We have our Google certification, our SLLA test prep for educational leaders, all that good stuff, support time, if you just need time building your brand, whatever. We always have our self-paced courses hanging out forever and ever on the website. And then last, but certainly not least, do you want to see a certain topic, or do you want to present a webinar? We're about to do our big push for spring webinars. We have a couple of them already scheduled, so definitely let us know. Do you want to present a webinar either in, starting in January through May is what we're scheduling for right now. But of course, we schedule for the whole year at the same time. So definitely let us know. We're interested. Let us know. We're waiting. We're waiting to hear from you. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with what we came here for. I'm excited. We want to talk about small gains, big gains with small groups. I'm just changing the whole title. So I am ready to get started. Let's hop in.
All righty. Thank you so much, Dr. Alexander. And again, good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are located. I am so honored and thrilled to share some great information with everyone about how small group instruction leads to big gains. If you are an educator, if you are a coach, if you are an administrator, or if you are working in even your own businesses as a daycare consulting, definitely want to give you all some strategies and information that could help improve the overall data for your classrooms as well as your school. Here on the first screen, of course, you see the ways that you can get in contact with me, which could be either through the telephone number, through the email, as well as on the Instagram site. So I believe that Dr. Alexander has already asked, to put in the chat where are you from. You can place the flag in the chat to represent the state or country you are joining from, because as we know that we have teachers as well as students that come from different countries all over the world that come into our classrooms or they are on our jobs, and we do our best to make sure we not only build relationships, but we also want to acknowledge their culture as well. So definitely please take a moment to do that in the chat. And then we're going to basically break the ice a little bit. I'm gonna come out of my screen. Just want to kind of get a snapshot or an idea of what it is that you may or may not know about small groups. I have been an educator now for 16 years. With students from grades kindergarten all the way up through high school. And one thing I can tell you is that even if the grade or the content changes, how students learn information does not change. Once you make those resources and give them strategies, you can literally teach them to do anything, especially getting those results on major statewide and local exams. So what I am going to do right now is go to the Kahoot and the chat. Let me put the link in the chat for you. And then this is going to be the code that I would like for you all to type in. So let me just put this in really quickly. So if you click on that and then join using the code, it's just some quick questions, just to kind of see what your knowledge or understanding is as it pertains to small group instruction. And if you have trouble typing in the code, please let me know. Or if you're using your desktop and you have your phone nearby, you can also always scan the QR code as well, but definitely click on the link and type in that code. I guess I can put the code in the chat as well, in case you all may need it there. Do you currently use small group instruction? Do you currently use it? Okay, we have yes and no. Okay, good. If you are currently using it, I'm definitely going to give you some ideas on what you can do to enhance it. If not, we'll get you started. Which would be the best piece of information I could use or you could use to create a small group? Okay, so we got assessments, class discussion. Yes, assessments, as well as even teacher observations can also assist. Definitely don't want to wait until the assessment comes. Okay. Who should I pull for a small group? Good question. Who should you pull for a small group? Okay. Struggling students, we got responses to that, and the student have behavior issues. Definitely don't want this just to be if they have a behavior issue, but it can help as more of an intervention. That would be more restorative justice. And just select one of the following with your experiences with small group instructions. Okay, I need help to be more consistent with small group instruction is the common response. Oh, and congratulations to Yay, Barb, and Emily. So when we get back into the presentation with truly understanding what small group instruction is, it is something that has to be strategically planned. Let's get my screen. Strategically planned. So that way, once you put the system and routines in place, really and truly, the students are going to produce great results because you have already laid that foundation to get them to know how to practice and deepen their understanding. So small group is this instruction where a teacher does work with small group of students. Typically, once you have your data, whether it's the beginning of the year assessment, whether it's a unit assessment, or even just when you are doing those guided lessons, you're going to know as a teacher when a student has not quite understood a concept. And so when you're doing those formative assessments, that is your time to kind of be thinking, how can I build in more practice time, especially with students with today's generation and the way that they learn. It's not set up like college style where you want to have a bunch of lectures or you're just pumping information. Small group instruction gives students that opportunity to really practice as well as spiral back to previous skills they may not have learned. It is great. It's a great support for using RTI and MTSS as well to help get those targeted group students, especially if they're in that bottom 25%, that lower quartile. Definitely want to make sure you have something more set up so that way they can make those learning gains as well as do the best they can to be on track to meet that proficiency goal. And as most of you already know, if you are in education, whether you're a teacher or a coach or administrator, learning gains is what helps to drive that data, which gives you that overall school grade. So when should you use them? Again, after you maybe have done a quiz as a formative assessment, using those Kagan strategies. If you use those Plicker cards as a quick way to, again, to monitor and get that feedback. you're going to have to make sure that you are collecting data in various ways as much as possible so that you as a teacher know that maybe after 1 or 2 days of giving instruction, it's time to break out into those small groups. Or it also could be after you have noticed that the bell work that has been completed and the feedback from the bell work is not the percent. Let's say if your goal is to have the students at 70% mastery of a bell work skill and they demonstrate 50%, well, in that particular case, you would need to probably have small group instruction set even within that very day and in that moment. And once you get the hang of setting them up, I promise you, it's less stressful on you. It's more practice days because you have assignments and activity that's built into the lessons for them as well. The ongoing progress monitoring, homework at the homework reviews. Now, let's be honest, we know some students do not do homework, okay? Getting them to practice, it is a struggle, okay? So what you also could do when you're doing that small group instruction, you could have a station or an activity set up where they're getting that extended practice because you want to make sure before they get to a test or a quiz that you have an idea of where they are so that there are no surprises, okay? So for example, when you're trying to get them in groups, this is typically something that I use actually when I've done elementary, middle, and high school. I typically every Wednesday, you don't see Wednesday that's set up on this particular schedule because Wednesdays are the days that I like to do that structured formative assessment. Most students and teachers and colleagues that I work with, they know every single Wednesday that is a strategic day to do a formative. Rather it's a teacher created quiz, rather it is something that is used on a district platform. That is the day. And once those kids know they're going to have that quiz every single Wednesday, they tend to try to be a little more prepared for it. So depending on your class sizes, and I know state laws may also can kind of regulate how many students go into class. And then sometimes those numbers go over, which can be overwhelming. When you have students that are set in designated groups, however, it makes the learning more intentional and more meaningful. So here you see, let's say, for example, with Monday, it's group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. So then let's say if there was something they did not finish on that Monday, depending on where they start, they also then have that Tuesday, and Wednesday or Thursday, excuse me, Friday to basically again complete those activities just to make sure each group, based on how you have it designed, gets to make it to all 4. The spiral review group, it's not something that is a teacher-led group where you have to monitor. Typically, if it is, let's say, for example, if you are a 5th grade ELA teacher and you have worked on theme and author's purpose and perspective, and you notice based on their data that they didn't quite master it, and then it is time to however move on to whole group instruction for your new learning target. When it is time for them to break out in rotations during your 90-minute literacy block, you can have some skills or activities set in place where they may have missed it then. And you can also have the skill in place there. If they're not on grade level, you also can place those activities in those groups as well. Then again, we see independent practices, digital activities, and then of course we have our enrichment groups. Those enrichment groups can be project-based. Those enrichment groups can be a performance task. You really have a lot of more flexibility once you have a plan in place and also have those activities. But it's the key thing with small group is making sure you are planned. Okay, so here we go. And if you have any questions, definitely feel free to put them in the chat. Please make sure you put them in the chat so that way you can definitely leave this session today with some ideas on what you can do either starting on Monday or as you plan for the next couple of weeks, because I know at least in Florida and Orlando, Q2 just began this week. So you definitely can always kind of map some things out. So I've prepared for you what you can see typically for elementary, middle, and high school. Again, it depends on what your schedule is set up. So here we see for ELA, for example, these are some of the standards that are taught for different grade levels. And if I were, for example, a 4th grade ELA teacher, and I realized that, you know what, while my other students are doing their activities, I'm going to pull students who I know may have missed or did not master the concept with this particular benchmark, ELA 3R11. But at the same time, while I'm trying to go back and intervene for it, I'm also going to expose them to what this would look like on a fourth grade level, so that way that they can see how to connect the dots. What is very important with small group instruction, not only for you to go back when you have the teacher-led group to review old skills, but you also still want to try to do some front loading for them as well. And it depends on, again, what the data is, because on the previous slide, and I'll just go back to it quickly, all of these students in these groups, it is a heterogeneous mixed group of students. Heterogeneous meaning you may have a level 1, or if they have like the low kids that may be coded as red, could be coded as yellow, could be coded green, so on and so forth. All these kids in these activities are going to be your heterogeneous mixed group. Then when the students who are coming to you at that teacher table, at the kidney bean, those are the students you are meeting that are on the same level. That would be your homogeneous group of kids, where you just pull one from each group and we sit down and we work on these particular skills. And then, as you can see, if I was an ELA teacher and I had the opportunity to pull at least 5 groups, I'm not doing the same activity. This is based on their specific instructional level. And there is also going to be another standard, again, to front load them. For example, with group 3, they're seeing this at the 4th grade level, and then they're going to get it at the 5th grade level if I, for example, was a 4th grade teacher. Then we see with math, it kind of gets a little tricky with math, because I know some school schedules are not set where it's the 90-minute, but trust me, you can make it work within an hour. What I typically would do with math is make sure they do a lot of previewing of the skills. I'm doing pre-assessments. These pre-assessments doesn't have to be here's paper, pencil, or log on a computer and take 20 questions. A lot of that is doing pre-assessments through different formative assessments, doing those 4 corner activities, whatever various of Kagan strategies you like to use. And then I look at some of their beginning of the year assessment data, whether it's the iReady. I know in Orlando we use a lot of Performance Matters. And I look to see, well, how did they do on this skill? And then from there, it's time to design the groups. So when they come to me here with 3rd grade with math, I know they're working on number sense. And then I also see this AR stands for algebraic reasoning. So I'm already having a plan in place to address their number sense and operations when it comes to order of operations, or being able to evaluate equations and things like that. Where you see this SC, that's more like a science skill. This one typically has to deal with a life science skill and dealing with the scientific method. Again, if this was my science block, typically most science lessons always start out with scientific method. You look to see, well, if I am a 7th grade teacher, how can I go back and spiral back to what they should have learned in 5th grade? And you basically have to chunk a lot of that in together. And it's that constant reviewing, constant reviewing. And then again, middle and high school, we know sometimes those students, they can be very unique. That's how I'm going to describe them. But I promise you, teachers, especially in the middle school, doing small group instruction is going to be more engaging for them versus them sitting in the desk and listening to you pumping out the information. Okay, so if we did our data analysis activity, this is what I want to try with you all this morning. If you can, for me, if you have paper and pencil nearby you, or if you want to sketch this in your phone, we're going to try to look at some data on the next slide and try to see that if you were the teacher, how you would be able to actually group these students. So once you actually have sketched down these 2 charts, I want you to just put a green check or an okay to let me know you're ready for me to go to the next slide. So I'm going to come out of this. Ooh, is it gonna go back to me? Okay, I'll leave this here just so I can kind of take a look and see. And then again, once you sketch this down, you are then going to just put, like, again, a little green check. Okay, give me a symbol in the chat. So that'll let me know we can move to the next slide so you all can see the data. All right, so here again, some data that has been pulled from an assessment of a teacher. And here we see about 22 students. If you had to group the students heterogeneously, so they're doing independent activities, take about, now time this and put 2 minutes on my timer. And then I want you to then in the chat type in, let's say if you, for your group 1, you would probably put student 10, 16, 19 maybe in the group, without necessarily grouping this. Do not group the students with more than 6 students in a group. No more than 6 students in a group. So it could be 3 to 5, 3 to 6, but take a moment looking at this data. I'll put an example of mine in. So if I had to come up with group 1, it would probably be, my group 1 would probably, let me hit that. Group 1, I probably would have, let's say student number 1. Go to share my screen. I would probably have student 1, and along with, I would do student 15, and then I probably would do student 11, as well as student probably number 8, and student 8. And then I probably would also, looking at this, I will go with, let's say student number 20, for example. Now, the reason why if I actually place these students in a group, because student number 1, as I can see, their overall data is a 21. I'll just round it up to 21%. Looking at student 15, 58%. They're a little over the halfway mark. Student number 11, as we can see, that's 79%. And then we see I have student number 8 who's almost at 100, was at 92%. Student 20 at 41%. So this will be a group, again, when they're doing a heterogeneous mixed group activity. Okay, see students for group 1, 1, 8. Okay, 21, 13, 16, good. Because what you always want to make sure you do when you have those heterogeneous groups, you want to make sure, even if it is, I see someone mentioned that their high school is ESC. I think I did see that. High school special educator. So you can still, even within that subgroup, still group them where one is going to be a little more high functioning than the others, because what's going to happen is they're going to serve as almost like being that group leader or their group captain. They're going to be the ones that probably remember the specific instructions that the teacher has provided. They also are going to be the ones that can identify those misconceptions. So definitely having a student such as student number 8 in a group is going to be key. And then what you would do from there, when it is time for you to establish a teacher-led group, you're going to pull your group based on the numbers that you see on the top. So for example, with question number 1, I see that majority, the numbers are super low. Usually I try to make sure if the numbers are 50% or higher, that means most of them got it. I don't really have to spend too much time on reviewing it. But with a question like question number 2, I know that when I'm planning for that week and I'm doing my groups, if I have a class where there's 5 students, am I going to see all 5 students that one day? Absolutely not. Can I see all 5 groups of students within that week? Absolutely, yes. We can definitely do that. And typically, if I'm in a 90-minute reading block, I would definitely advise the teachers that you would spend at least 30 minutes of doing your instructional delivery, whether it's your bell work, guided practice. If you use Marzano strategies, do 30 minutes of that. And then your 60 minutes, you break your groups up into 20 minutes each. So that way you're doing the rotational activities and they get to spend 20 minutes at a specific activity, which then means you as the teacher have 20 minutes to pull a group and spend specific 20 minutes going over this particular question right here, question number 2. Okay. And that one would definitely be something where you want to show them what the actual question is, show them what it is, what they got wrong, identify what the misconceptions are, but then you also want to have additional questions available so that you're going to reassess them. Reassessing them does not mean give them an actual full test or even reassessing them on the same exact question, but you would reassess them with a similar skilled question. And again, it does not have to be a day in the class period to do it. If I'm reteaching this to you and reviewing it, let's say on a Monday, Tuesday, when I probably may see the same group, at this point, you should be able to practice. And then possibly at the last 10 minutes of that teacher-led small group instruction, I should be able to give you at least 2, no more than 3 questions to show me how well you have improved on a question like number 2, where majority of them were wrong. But then we see that there's a question that they did do well on, such as question number 5. If I see I have students like this and most of them did well, I still will review this question. However, now it's time to take it up a notch and teach this standard based on what is the next grade level, or increase the rigor of it based on Bloom's taxonomy, or you while embedding in Webb's depth of knowledge. So that way they can hopefully get to the level 4 or the mastery of it, because being proficient and mastery are going to be 2 different things. Okay. So typically, again, when you're looking at your questions, you want to make sure in your standards, particularly looking to see if the numbers, if your data for each particular standard, if they are less than 50%, those are going to be the questions you want to make sure when you're pulling your small groups that you are reteaching, reviewing, and reassessing anytime it is less than 50%. Okay. Does anyone have any questions so far? All right.
None at this time.
Okay. So one thing you should also know, the benefits of small group instruction, the benefits of you allowing students to work in heterogeneous groups and you pull a homogeneous group of kids, because based on college readiness, it is this strategy that helps students be more prepared for colleges. It is this strategy that helps students to be prepared for not only just statewide exams, but also on those nationwide exams, such as SAT and ACT as well, because we also know the goal is to get students to get scholarships, and students can only get scholarships to get free money when they increase on their test scores. So here's another, again, a blueprint on when you're setting up those stations. Ideally, what do you have designed for them, as well as some additional best practices for effectiveness. And one thing about it, when the students are in front of you in that teacher-led station, it's constant, ongoing over the mistakes or going over those misconceptions, asking students how they got that answer, asking students what their reasoning is, because there may be more than one way to skin a cat. So there's also more than one way on how you arrive to the answers. Students have to know that it is okay to be an abstract thinker and abstract learner, but it is the educator's job to make sure that you all foster that. So if you have not been, or if you need assistance with being more intentional, we definitely, outside of this webinar, can set up some time so I can actually see what lesson and how you want to actually build from it. But pulling those kids, 3, no more than 5, in front of you, working with them in a smaller setting, they're also going to be a lot more focused because it cuts out the distraction. Your students that are away in their independent workstations, they're going to be fine. They're going to do the work. They're going to practice. They are going to have someone in that group that's going to hold them accountable. So you can work with some of those other students that need some extra, what I like to call TLC. Okay. So again, if you are interested and you need additional specific information as far as your lessons, what's catering to your students, I definitely want to open up the platform to be able to take those questions, to be able to take those concerns. So that way, and I'll stop sharing my screen now. So that way you can at least get started with this on Monday, at least the planning process. So that way it can make it a little less stressful when you're trying to get students into specific groups. Just wanted to show a video that when you have done small group instruction, how you can do like performance task activities with the students as a result from allowing them to work throughout the week on specific skills or content. Let me just try to get to this video. I literally just thought about it in the moment, so let me try to pull it up. Oh, okay, it's not, it's a little delayed. But what I wanted to do is point out, let me try to go back a second on here, because with this particular skill, the students were working on transformations. And so I had them placed in certain stations throughout the week and they practice certain things. And I wanted them to display their knowledge through music and movement. And what I was able to capture from how they were moving is if someone did not only listen to the words correctly, but did they properly mirror or reflect the group across from them. So the student right here in the blue, I'll see if it'll let me go back without being delayed, actually kind of went in the wrong direction. And so this is kind of one of those activities where, if I see as a form of assessment that there's a slight mistake here, I would then know this. Definitely, again, just want to stop because it seems like it's a little delayed. But when you're even doing such activities such as that, I mean, you definitely want to make that good teacher observation. So when it's time for to do again an independent practice and pull in groups, you can identify them. So when planning for multiple small groups, it seems very time consuming. How many days do you plan for at a time? I actually, when I plan for the small groups, within one day and probably about 1 hour, I will plan out the groups for probably 2 weeks. I'll be honest. It'll be mapped out in 2 weeks. So for example, if I started a new skill and it's a 10 days, I have about 10 days to teach it. I know 2 of those days are already going to come out because okay, 2 of those days are going to come out because remember, every Wednesday, I know I have my formative assessment. And then if I know I'm going to test at the end of the 10-day window, what I normally would put that quiz on a Wednesday, it then becomes a test day. So then what typically happens from there on a Monday and a Tuesday, a lot of that I will spend the time to do the front loading, doing the chunking of a lot of the information. Wednesday is that checkpoint to see if they retained it. I'm looking at my data. And then I spend Thursday, Friday, because I'm already going to have the activities planned for it on a Monday, that planning. Thursday, Friday is going to be the day that the students are going to, again, spend a whole math period or spend, again, that 60 minutes out of that 90-minute read block working on those rotational activities. And then if it's a following Monday, again, after reviewing the data, doing my spiral reviewing, if I see based on the work they have produced on a Thursday, Friday, then I'm going to spend Monday quickly doing the review, and then I'm pulling groups again on Monday. And then again, the groups are going to probably be fluid. They're going to change. It's not going to be, well, these kids did this on Tuesday, Thursday, and these kids are going to do this again on a Monday. The groups then are going to change depending on what the formative assessment data looks like. So then by the time it's that Wednesday, again, Thursday's a review, Friday's going to be a test. So typically it only takes me 1 hour on a Monday to plan out for 2 weeks. And once those systems are in place, the systems is what helps support the student learning. It's not a whole lot of work. The most work I do is when the kids come to me in the teacher led, but for the most part, their activities are already planned for 2 weeks within just one day. All right. Other than that, if there are no questions at the moment, definitely want to, again, put my contact information out there for you all again, where you can reach me, because you may have questions after this session. But Dr. Alexander, I think I'm going to pass it back over to you, because that is all. That concludes my presentation for today. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining the small group instruction on how it leads to big gains. We definitely want to make sure, again, we prepare our students for the future by working with them in the smaller setting, meeting them at their instructional level. That is the key. You don't want to have students who are in 5th grade, working on these skills, they struggle, you see it. You want to go spiral back to maybe a 3rd or 4th grade skill, but most of the time in your small group instruction, you have to do the front loading for them, as well as exposing them to a future skill or standard. That is the key that works for myself. That is what has worked for colleagues that I've worked with. A lot of my 16 years experience has been with the bottom 25%. And I can tell you, there's students that have normally been level ones. By the time it's the end of the school year, they're getting those 3s, those 4s, there's 5s, they're getting the top scores. In high school, where they normally would not meet a graduation requirement, they are meeting the graduation requirement. Even at the high school that I work at, typically the proficiency was in the learning gains was about 25. The learning gains, was about 50, and the proficiency rate was about 25%. But even introducing the small group instruction to secondary level, we now have had it where that the proficiency has doubled, and the learning gains that they've been able to achieve have been at 75%, which when you're getting students that typically have been level ones all the way up to high school, that is not easy to normally accomplish. But getting those Algebra 1 teachers, getting those geometry teachers, we're doing small group instruction. It is now to the point they have came to the school and see the modeling that we've done with small group instruction, where now it is mandatory for high schools to do small group instruction with their students because of the practices and systems that have been put in place. So I definitely would love to connect with you all beyond this presentation. But what is going to help me to be able to help you, I would need to see what is the data looking like for your students, and then we can build and grow from there. But once we get that connection going, I promise you, you are going to see some great results. And all it takes is just one day of planning. It doesn't take being up hours in the middle of the night. It doesn't even require you to do a whole lot of grading, because most of it, when the students articulate it, and from when they articulate that to you, it shows up on their structured exam. It is going to make your job much, much, much easier and much, much less stressful. So Dr. Alexander, I will hand it back over to you, ma'am, if you have any concluding statements that you would like to provide.
Thank you so much. I love that all of the information is very practical. I appreciate that. And even giving time to do it themselves, like, to look at the data chart and like, how would you group these students? I think that it was just very, very informative. So thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Yes, ma'am.